I slept on a bed that my dad had found on the side of the road, on like a wooden bed. How do the creatives find income in the Philippines? I would literally call that my year of like figuring out what my purpose was. To me, I was like, there has to be something that I can do.
What episode is this?
This is episode 5.
Welcome to episode 5 of Let's Talk BS. I am Monique and this is
Hi, I'm Jane, and I'm awkward and shy.
Today is a very exciting episode because we are celebrating 3 years of Blanc Studio.
Wow, yeah. I can't even believe it.
I know.
I haven't had a proper chance to just sit down and even like think about it. So
this is the time.
Today's the day.
Yeah. So we thought that as a little celebration and I was going to say celebration again. We're celebrating Blanc Studio. We're going to talk about the journey and how it started and sort of every iteration of Blanc Studio and how it got to where it is and then where it's going, which is also exciting.
Yeah. There's a lot. I don't even know where to begin, but this is why you're here, right?
I was going to say, well, where do we begin? Where did it start? Tell me like day one, because it wasn't always Blanc Studio. So tell me about that.
I think it would have, I think it's best to start off the business journey while I was still in hospo, which is a great opportunity to talk about it since our last episode together with Mon. We spoke a lot about my hospitality journey and my business journey in my early 20s. But yeah, basically I am a true hospitality girl. And I have been in hospo, well, I was in hospo for like 7 years and that was like the end goal for me. Do you remember?
Oh, absolutely. It was like you were literally looking for investors for starting a cafe. You were ideating what cafe you were going to start, what the concept was going to be.
Yeah, it was this dream that I've always had. It was going to be the business. I always knew I was going to be in business, but it was the business that I was going to pursue.
You were learning like everything you could about starting a cafe.
Yeah, and I was always wanting, to establish like great connections with my my employees. Sorry, employers, not employees.
Well, and employees too.
Yeah, true. But yeah, just finding opportunities for partnerships and learning the operations and really what goes behind like a hospitality establishment because that was my passion back then. And during those years, throughout the 7 years of hospo, like I said in the last episode together with you, I've always done photography, social media for those cafes, but also surrounding cafes and hospitality venues. So I've always had, I guess, I didn't have a name for it.
No.
I was just doing it as like a freelancer
Well, like
thing.
every cafe I worked at with you, you were just doing it.
Yeah, right?
Mind you, for free technically, right?
That was
like,
not part of my job role.
Like you just took it on.
Yeah.
But I would actually like, I don't want to like say that that's the reason for those places' success, but I definitely think that was a huge contributor to those places being so successful.
You reckon?
Yeah, absolutely. Like now when you look at it, their social media, they're not as good.
You can be like, controversial in this podcast.
There's less attention to detail. There's less like consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
Which is very important in social media, is consistency, and
you tell them, Mon, come sell our service. This is a sales pitch.
Yeah. Contact hello@blancstudio.au.
Oh, you got that right. Yeah. Well done. So that was like, I guess, how it all came about. I think really in my last year of hospitality was kind of when things started turning around for me. I had taken on my first few ever clients in social media, and those were retainers. So those weren't like one-off projects where, you do the service once and then that was it.
Are they? I can't remember when they're like the very first few ones were, but are they some of this like still existing clients, or are they?
I messaged Aliska this last night.
Yeah, I'm like, was she?
She commented back on the episode of Yufern, and I was like, fun fact, you and Yufern were the ones that allowed me to take my business full time, and she was like, stop it.
Like, isn't it crazy? Like those, like particularly like Aliska has already had like a pretty decent following, like pretty established business. Like that was pretty cool for her to like hire you and take that chance on you. And like, the growth from when you first started with her, even like YouFern, like the growth for those businesses is so amazing.
Yeah, I think it's just so incredible that like, they took a chance.
Yeah.
On me, but like knowing what I know now, I'm like, why did you take a chance on me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was still like working fully like 50, 60 hours in hospitality and I gave that cafe like my everything.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. And at the end of every year where I was working, we would have a full month off for just like holidays and like basically a forced leave. And so within that month, I went into a little bit of a depressive episode, which led to my mental breakdown. And I was figuring out what was happening to me because I was so tired every single day on this couch, by the way.
Aww.
I couldn't get up. Like I would day by day try to, you know, go to the gym, do the normal things, but I would sleep. I would sleep like 12 hours a day, but then throughout the day I would have like 5 naps across the day.
Do you think that was like just a burnout symptom?
I thought it was I was just tired from, you know, hospo coming out of COVID, because that was the year as well where we were like coming out of COVID and there was so much pressure and like so many weird changes. Like the staff were weird, like no one wanted to work hospo.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of pressure as a manager to like
find staff and have people who would actually show up.
Exactly.
Because they were getting paid more by the government to stay at home than they were to actually work.
Yeah. So that was a month of just like recognizing something's actually like wrong. And I remember it was probably a week or two before we had to go back to work, and it was the first time where I had to think about work. And I remember we didn't have enough staff going back into work, and so 2 weeks before I officially was like starting to get paid again to work, I had to do work and like scout for staff. And I just remember meeting with someone, technically doing an interview out of paid hours for me to like meet someone just to make sure I had enough staff for me when we opened. I remember meeting with that person and then going to the GP to get a mental health care plan because something was wrong with me. I literally remember arriving home, parked my car downstairs, and I just full on just like cried. That was like, I was like shaking because I was so anxious about the fact that I had to go back to work. And I think that day was the day that I realized I had to quit my job. But that was shocking to me because hospo was my dream. And I was like, holy shit, like who am I outside of hospo? You know what I mean? And although I had those clients and I had those retainers, I never saw, at this time I had called it Jane Collective already, the business. I never saw it anything outside of a side hustle. Fun fact, like I actually never intended to take this business full time or grow it to where it is now.
So do you think it was born out of passion or out of wanting like some income to fund your actual dream, which was owning a cafe at the time? Or what was the reason for having that as your
I found this out like during my first year officially of Jane Collective, which I'll get into, but I kind of want to close off like that part of like quitting that job. So I had my mental breakdown, figured out that I had to quit, and decided that I was going to take my business full time. Mind you, I was working like 50 to 60 hours a week for the cafe, and I was probably spending an extra 5 to 10 hours in my side hustle.
A week or?
A week.
Yeah, okay.
And I was earning the same.
I was gonna say, because I remember there was a point where you were like, okay, so I'm in my job where I'm working those hours, you're earning the same, but was it at that point where it was like 5 to 10 hours, a couple of retainers? Okay, cool. So it was like a no-brainer, like really.
I had 2 clients.
Yeah.
Well, I had 3, but then 1 I had to drop because we're just not aligned.
Yeah.
So I had 2 clients when I quit the cafe, which was Iliska and YouFern.
Wow.
I know, isn't that so
that is crazy?
crazy?
And I would say, like, I know we've talked about this in previous episodes that that's like your ideal client, and
and it
like,
just shows because we've had them for the past 3 years, right?
Literally, like they're so aligned.
Yeah, for sure. So I had those 2 clients, and then I was working full-time job, and I had no financial planning. I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew I had to get the fuck out. Like I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I'm just gonna see how we go. And so with that, I kind of just jumped into it, and I quit. And that was, I think, I have to talk about this because that was an identity that I had to like come to terms to, that I was no longer aligned with.
That is
because
so
my end goal for me, I thought I was gonna be like, I'm gonna have multiple cafes and, you know, owning a few different venues in Melbourne. That was like my absolute dream goal. I was gonna have these beautiful aesthetic cafes.
And cafes were like so huge at the time. I think Melbourne cafe culture's sort of not dying, but it's definitely not got the hype after COVID.
Yeah, for sure.
And that was such a huge thing at the time.
Yeah, and then I always wondered why, like the past 7 years of wanting to own a cafe, why it never happened. I've always been like, oh my God, like I work so hard, I treat everyone so well. Why does this just, every time I come close to it, remember that time where I basically got an approval for an investment of $300,000 from a couple, and then it just didn't even happen because COVID happened after. Like there would be so many different little things where I would say yes, yep, let's take the next step, and then something would happen. And now I completely,
like,
thank you, Lord Jesus. Like honestly, now I completely understand, and I learned this now reflecting on like, it was after the first year of Jane Collective. So after Hospo, I did Jane Collective, and man, I guess that's the second chapter. That was like the full second year of Jane Collective.
Yeah. I want to go back to why you started Jane Collective in the first place. Like what was the reason you even, because obviously you were taking photos for businesses.
Yeah, and I was doing social media as well.
What made you go, oh, I wonder if I could like do this for other people?
I didn't. I had the worst like self-belief. I didn't think I could do it on my own. There were so many people, like business owners, who I have a lot of friends who are like a lot older, in like they've been in business. They were probably like in their mid-30s to 40s. And back then I was what, 24, 23, 25? Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm forever 18.
I feel like that too.
Anyway, I was like in my early to mid 20s, and I had a lot of friends in business who were like 30, 35 onwards. All of them were like, why don't you do like your social media and your content stuff as a business? And I was like, no, like that's just a side hustle. I want to do cafe. I want to do cafe. I was so stubborn. I was like, no, cafe is what I want to do.
Thank goodness, right? Like, do you ever look back and think like, man, hospitality is brutal?
I'm trauma triggered.
I know. I feel like when I think about going back to hospitality, I'm like, oh, that's like,
I get that feeling. I did a rockstar shift one time.
I remember
at that previous cafe, and I was like shaking. I was so triggered.
Oh my gosh, like the nervous system.
I was like, can I go home early? I was supposed to close.
Oh my god.
And I just asked to go home early, and I think they knew, so because they never asked me to like rockstar shift ever again.
I did a rockstar shift once. I don't know. I think this is the last one I did, and they asked me to come back 2 days later, and I was like, I can't. I was like, I'm sorry, I can't.
It's not worth it.
Like, no,
it's not worth it.
It was not.
Sorry, love you all who love.
Thank you for making our delicious coffee.
Yes. Thank you for doing what you do so that we don't have to. So I didn't fully believe in myself with this current business, Blanc Studio, Jane Collective at the time. It wasn't even a thing until I had to do it out of survival, which is the whole reason why I created Jane Collective. And I'm gonna say this very vulnerably, but to be honest with you, Jane Collective was like a vessel for survival for me. Back then, of course,
as a creative outlet, you mean like something just to do to?
No.
In what way?
What I mean by that is like, because I had to get out of hospo. It was the thing that made sense to do because I had the creative skill sets for it.
Okay, and this is when you quit your job. You felt like
everything was survival for me back then, and of course I loved it. I loved all my creative skills and talents. So Jane Collective, why I did it was, number one, there's a couple of reasons. It made sense at the time because it's like, what am I gonna do? I don't want to work for anyone but myself. And I had some traction in Jane Collective, so it made sense to do that. Secondly, part of like my traumas and like growing up, especially in my teenage life into early adulthood, I never got the support from family, friends, or even like, you know, my circle of like employers, friends, especially family. I never got the support that I needed as like just a young kid trying to like figure out what she wanted to do. So I was never told you can't do photography, you can't do all these artsy things to create an income and make a living, you know? So that was the dialect that I had in my head, which would make sense that I had such low confidence and I didn't believe in myself. And even like that was a reality for me. I didn't think that my business could be a reality for me. So it was kind of like an FU. Like I created Jane Collective as an like FU to everyone to be like, you know what? I am gonna create a business that would service all the skill sets and all the things that I'm passionate about that you told me I couldn't do. So yeah, that was like why I started Jane Collective, which just sounds so bad when I when I think about it now, because I was reflecting on this the other day and I was like, damn, your first year of business was fully about survival, as well as they were all very self-centered purposes. You know what I mean?
I feel like that's so normal though. How many people will start a business? Let's just say like activewear, for example. How many people start an activewear business or a, you know, like skincare business, whatever, to solve their own, like something they don't see for themselves in the market.
That's true.
And it transforms for so many people. Once you start building community, once you start evolving the business, that's when you start building the mission.
And the purpose. I think that's so true, because at the beginning I definitely didn't have that sense of purpose that I do now for Blanc Studio. And I think just to continue on with, you know, the second year being Jane Collective, right?
Okay, hang on. Can we recap for a second? So first year was when?
First year, hospo.
And you were
freelancing.
Still working. And then the second year, at what point did you quit your job in that second year?
At the beginning.
At the very beginning?
So and that was like March 2 years ago.
Okay, how long between quitting your job did you rebrand?
A full year after.
A full year after. So it's like one.
So this past year has been Blanc Studio.
1 year Blanc Studio. Okay.
Wow.
I actually remember like doing the new campaign for that.
Oh wow. So with Jane Collective, I wanted to share a bit about like, I guess what I learned in that year and what led to Blanc Studio. Because I feel like that whole year was a learning curve to create Blanc Studio. Like it was preparing me for Blanc Studio.
It was literally you working out what it needed to be.
Oh my God, and you were there all along.
I know, but you were like, this is how I visualize it, is you were like in your circle and you've just like started to expand and grow that circle. And that's how it became Blanc Studio, because it was like outside of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I quit my job, Frank and Harry, I did say I only had 2 clients, which obviously it's not enough to like just living, like to sustain my living. So there were a few months there where I wasn't earning enough, like honestly. Like,
do you look back and you're like, how did I survive?
I mean, I had some savings.
Okay.
But not a lot. But at the same time, I was like, I never looked back once. Like I never, of course it was scary. I remember feeling scared and worried, but I was more like, I had such a sense of like tenacity within me that it wasn't an option to like fail or go broke. So I never saw that as a reality within me.
I was gonna say, was that ever a thought that you just immediately shut down, or did it never even enter like what was in your mind? I
had those thoughts, but the thoughts that were like, no, you have no choice but to actually just go fully 100%. You just
shut them down.
Quick. That was stronger than like my fear.
I'm trying to work out how to phrase this. I'm thinking about like you saying like you had that self-doubt. How did self-doubt play into that journey? Like
a lot. My journey of self-doubt was prominent throughout the second year, which was Jane Collective. So yeah, I would describe the second year as the Jane Collective chapter. So I remember feeling so just overwhelmed one time. Like there was a few months where I was just struggling to bring in revenue and like income and like finding new clients, and I was just started thinking from such a survival mode in a lack mindset. And I could sense myself being so, what's the word for it? Just like coming from lack. So I wasn't attracting like those clients that I needed to expand the business. Did you have any
staff, or was it just you?
I think it was just me and Hannah.
Yes, that's right.
Hannah would help me out to do like photography here and there. But it was just me, of course, like talking to a couple of new potential clients, etc. But I just knew that like it wasn't enough.
And how are you getting clients at this point? Or like
word of mouth and social media. And fun fact, once again, like old customers from my previous cafes. I love them. The best support.
Oh my gosh, Hospo is the best for networking.
Even Train 24/7 was from my previous cafe.
Right.
So I met Yufan, Aliska and Pete, who owns Train. They're all from my previous work from my cafe. So it all had its purpose, you know, that cafe era was like my networking.
But even we talked about in the last episode, the amount of skills that we learnt from Hospo, like the
we can't deny that.
The way you just have to like be so efficient, and your brain is thinking about a million things.
Efficiency.
Like, and I know, like in the work I do for you, that I think that's one of the most, like I would say if we were hiring another person for social media, I would say one of the things that we should put on a job description is say like multitasking. You have to be able to like flip between a million things at once. And you have to keep track of like tasks you're going to do like all day. You've
100%.
got different tasks that are going to drop in all day, urgent things.
And also so many different clients that are in different stages of like, you know.
There's just so much that you have to remember, and I really do think that Hospo was such a good breeding ground for all of these skills that we have to use every day.
Absolutely, and learning systems as well. We did a bit of systems in Hospo, but like I didn't really recognize the importance of systems until like social media now. Because even like I feel like social media, there's so many things more than Hospo in terms of like steps. I don't know, it might be different for like front of house because we were front of house. Kitchen might be different. Sorry,
I don't want to be in there.
I don't want to be in there either. So that was like, I was in survival mode for like the first few months of Jane Collective, and then I wasn't attracting like income and stuff like that. So I started just being like, ooh, and like coming from lack mindset and just didn't really believe in myself. And then I remember traveling to Sydney. It was like my first, I had like an enlightening moment there.
What made you go there in the first place?
I wanted to go to Sydney to treat myself to like travel for the first time solo. But I didn't want to go overseas because it was my first time traveling solo. So I wanted to go to Sydney. And I met up with a friend there, and we were just talking about upbringing and just growing up like here in Australia. And I remember this few months in my life, there was so many random memories from like my teenage years that I had forgotten or suppressed that started coming up. And I literally remember we were walking across what's that harbour bridge?
Sydney Harbour Bridge.
What's it called?
Sydney Harbour Bridge?
Sydney. We were walking, literally having a conversation across Sydney Harbour Bridge, and I was like, holy crap. I literally just remembered how poor we were, like, growing up. Because there was this memory that came up that when I was in maybe 11 or 12, we came from the Philippines, and my dad had to obviously provide for his family. And I literally coming over and like this new house and everything. And I slept on a bed that my dad had found on the side of the road, on like a wooden bed, and it had no mattress or anything like that. So I just slept on like a sleeping bag.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And where was your first house? Like where was
It was in Clayton.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So we lived there and we were so poor, and then I remembered that memory and I was like, oh my God, like.
How old were you? 12?
Yeah, like 11, 12, 13. Yep. And I also then remember in the same kind of years that because my parents couldn't afford the rent, they had to rent out my room. I don't know why they didn't rent out my brother's room. They rented out my room, so I had to sleep on the couch for
oh my goodness,
3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So who rented it? Was it just like
it was like some girl from church that
wow.
Yeah, she could live with my family and like pay some of the rent so that my parents can afford it, kind of thing. So that was intense. I remember that and I was like, holy shit, like I will never put myself or my children in that position of poverty. I'm laughing about it, but it's literally just my trauma.
Yeah, it's also like that story of them like having to rent so someone could live. Like they were so what's the word, like resourceful to think of that though. Like
yeah,
they did, I don't know, like they did what they had to do. They really did.
Yeah, I see that now, but to me, that I spent a lot of my early 20s resenting my parents for, you know, I would remember things like, oh, I would go back to school after school holidays and all my friends would talk about, oh, we went to Queensland, we went to family holidays, what did you do? The teacher would ask me, what did you do? My parents had to work. My dad was a scholar, right? He had to work at a factory at night to provide for the bills. And my mum was like, she's also a teacher in the Philippines. So she did well in the Philippines, but here she had to work in a factory.
Yeah.
So school holidays, my parents were working and my brother, we were like 11, 12. We couldn't leave the house obviously for like safety reasons. So I was stuck at home doing nothing with my brother for like 2 weeks. And then I would come to school and everyone's like, yeah, we went on family holidays. We went to Roomba Festival, and then people would ask me, what did you do? And I was like, I sat on the couch and watched AFL with my brother, watched Collingwood.
Do you feel like you suppressed those emotions?
I 100% did, because that year of Jane Collective, I don't know why it started coming up. And I think that kind of just like pushed me further to be like, you need to work harder so that you are not ever gonna put yourself in that state ever again. And also during that time, I think I just figured out that sense of like, okay, this is not for you anymore. This is like for your future children. So I think after that I had a mindset switch and like things just started skyrocketing like towards the end of that year. And I had to like, everything was so chaotic. Everything was basically like, we were growing so rapidly. So I took the business from like 2 clients to 8 clients in a time span of 6 months. And I didn't have the resources, the team for that, and the systems for that.
Yeah. I was going to say because I can't even remember at what time that year I came on board. I think it was like maybe May.
I think it would have been like at the beginning, thankfully.
Yeah, but like what made you kind of like make that jump? And also like what made you decide on what would be the first hire that wasn't Hannah? I
think it made sense that you would help me with the copywriting because obviously I already had you as a resource and I knew you and I could trust you. So that was, and also I didn't really enjoy writing captions. Like I was good at it, but I was like, I don't, like this is something that I have other things that I would rather do. So that was pretty easy. And we haven't looked back since, you know?
No,
like,
oh my gosh.
We literally haven't.
And it's just been like, it's been so organic.
Yeah, exactly. So that was really good. And then I had to hire social media manager, which was someone we don't talk about. You might have to cut that out, Aiden, that part. So I had to hire that second person, which was a huge learning curve as to like the type of people I want involved in my business. within that year. But also in terms of like talking about purpose for Jane Collective, I did a lot of travels that year as well. So I saw the potential of what my business could do for me as a person, and also met a lot of business owners along the way. So I think with the whole concept of Blanc Studio, I was like, Jane Collective doesn't sit right. Like towards the end of that year, I was like, Jane Collective doesn't feel quite right anymore, because I created Jane Collective as a self-serving business. And then I met all these people throughout the year, and my purpose got bigger and like louder within me, that I was like, I can't do Jane Collective anymore. I have to turn it, like I have to transform this business into something that serves other people.
When you launched, because I know you obviously launched a new website, you launched, we did the campaign, we did all the photography, all of that. Did you, this is like, you don't have to answer this full question if you don't feel comfortable, but did you have the money to do the website, to do the new campaign, all of that? Was that a huge stretch, or did it feel like, how do you said you went from a lack mindset to like definitely more of an abundance mindset, but like, did you ever have any doubts along the way? Like, did you think like, we can't afford to do this rebrand, or like?
Surprisingly, no.
It just felt natural, like?
I knew, because at this point, I was like so deep within my business already.
And it had to change.
Yeah, and again, I had some savings. I think it was just like, I looked at like my money in the bank account. I'm just like, I'm just gonna transfer everything over to my business account. And like,
wow.
This is like such a tenacious time of my life as like a young business owner who had no financial planning, financial advice back then, because I was just like hard on it. I was just like, I knew I had to invest in a website, which was like, you know, a couple $1,000s. I knew I had to invest in photography and videography, another couple $1,000s. So there was a lot of like foundational things that I needed to make my business what it needed to be.
Did we have, I can't remember, we didn't have Maida at this point, did we? No, she was like a lot later. So who
the
edited
girls,
all of the...
That was Jerry and Aldwin and all of them.
Oh,
Yeah, so they helped me throughout like the Jane Collective year.
Yeah.
And like most of last year as well. So I've been working with them the past 2 years, basically.
Yeah, that was a good campaign.
Yeah, that was, see, even then, like I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah,
but I didn't realize I was doing a campaign.
Yeah, like it was so professional.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Wow.
That was the Jane Collective year, I guess.
And then let's talk about that transition to Blanc Studio and like the birth of Blanc Studio.
Wow, this is a huge topic.
Yeah. So how did you, even like the name, how did you decide on Blanc Studio? Tell me what that means for those who don't know what Blanc Studio is, or what you want to share about it.
Back in my hospo days, I had envisioned a space. It was like a multidisciplinary space. That's what I would call it. I love that word. But then I realized I can't say it, so I stopped saying it. It was this space where it would be like a cafe, but it would be like a blank canvas. There would be a cafe in there, but it would kind of be like a homeware shop. Beautiful, like all white.
I remember.
Do you remember?
The first time we had this conversation, I'm pretty sure we were walking to Armadale. We were like walking to High Street Armadale, and you were like, or maybe driving. I don't remember. Yeah. But I remember you like giving me this whole vision.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember this memory.
Yeah. Well, you did. You told me like the whole memory, or the whole like idea behind it.
Really? Of that cafe?
Yeah. And then I think shortly after, at this point, you were really like mulling over it. Like you were really trying to figure out where it was going to go next.
Yeah, because I was like still in hospo, so I had hospo like as the like main thing.
You wanted to sort of put it in.
So it's going to be a cafe, and then it would be like an art gallery where different artists could come present their work every month or something, but then I could rent out the space for people to hire out or whatever. It would just definitely this blank space for all creatives to present their art. But then it would just have like that cute little like homeware and like coffee aspect to it. So that's the idea. I kind of put that to rest for ages when I had Blanc Studio and I had all the digital work going on. And then when the purpose changed from like Jane Collective to Blanc Studio, it became very clear to me that I had something very powerful in a sense where, you know, our main services is basically marketing, right? And brand marketing, to be more specifically. And what brand marketing is essentially to its core is storytelling and helping a business tell their story to the world. And that sense of purpose where I was like, actually, yeah, that makes sense.
It's not
like,
about just a pretty picture.
It's not just social media. It's about what our clients, let's just say what Iliska or what Yufan believe in, how do we help them express that to their audience? And then I realized it all makes sense. Like through social media, obviously we can
It's the vessel.
That's the vessel to execute this specific purpose, but also in their branding. Like we weren't doing branding at this point, but I always wanted to, and now we are, right? So that's why I just continued that on for all the online services. But eventually, we'll talk about it later. It's gonna be bigger than that.
And explain, it's not, the purpose became more than just about people's businesses and telling their story. Can you add on a bit about like VPS and how that ties into Blanc Studio?
Okay. So, in that year, the Jane Collective year, I would literally call that my year of like figuring out what my purpose was, because there were so many things that was just speaking up and just being like, you're supposed to be doing this in terms of like your bigger message and what you're actually here to do, you know. It sounds so like, oh my God, but I don't know how to say it without sounding that way. But it was just such a year of like eye-opening experiences that led me to be like, you're supposed to be doing something bigger than...
Did you go to the Philippines that year?
Yeah, I traveled a lot, and that was one of the biggest experiences that led me to the other business.
I feel like you came back and had like these new ideas and had a new idea of what you wanted to do. Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, I was born and raised in the Philippines, and I came here in Australia when I was 9 or 10. So I know what it's like living in a third world country. I've seen, you know, friends and family and how they live their lives over there. And then, 2 years ago when I went to the Philippines was the last time I went to the Philippines. And
gee, that feels like it was so much soon. Like it feels like it was last week.
I know, but it's been 2 years.
Yeah, such a long time ago.
3 years this year. Anyway, I went there, and that was the first time where I went where I was like an adult, not fully fledged adult. Last time I went was 18.
Yeah.
And so I saw it from a very different perspective, and I saw how much people actually struggled, how much there was just so much struggle within like my friends and my families and just their jobs, and how I just didn't understand the system of like how little everyone was getting paid for the living expenses.
Yeah, I remember you saying something to put it in perspective, that the wage, the national wage is like, what was it, it something was like, super low, but their living expenses are comparative to Australia.
Yeah, literally. So I just saw that and I was like, that's weird. Like, it didn't feel right for me, and I was like, how it's so unfair that, you know, these people, the Filipinos, these people, it's so unfair that I had the opportunity to come out of that, but they are still in this screwed up system. And so I was like, how do the creatives find income in the Philippines? Like, how the people who do photography, who do videography, who do graphic design, who do artistic stuff, how do they find income? Because in the Philippines, like, if you're not a nurse, if you're not an accountant, if you're not a teacher, they don't take you seriously,
Yeah.
which was so upsetting to me because I'm like, wow, like I've come such a long way that I've created a business to literally fund my creative endeavors, you know what I mean? So to me, I was like, there has to be something that I can do. And I wanted to somehow hire a team, a creative team from the Philippines through Blanc Studio. But then I quickly realized there's so many like legalities that I had to do to be able to actually hire. Like there had to be.
You just don't think about that,
yeah,
do
like
you?
making sure they pay the taxes right, making sure they had like all the legalities in the Philippines. I couldn't do it through Blanc Studio.
No.
So I was like,
Man, that's like that's just something you wouldn't even think about.
exactly. So I just started a new company.
Yeah. Naturally.
So this birth Virtual Prosperity Solutions, which is a sister company, and we help business owners, startups and small business owners here in Australia. But the bigger purpose of it is to provide and cultivate prosperity in the Philippines through, just making sure that they have a community of like just a healthy working environment and a good like working morale. And also we pay them 3 times minimum what the average standard income is in the Philippines. So I think average standard wages there is 15,000 per month or something like that, which is $500-$600, which is nothing.
That is crazy.
Here in Australia. So imagine that's literally what families, like parents, would be earning, and they would have children. Like how? Like I just could not understand it. Like how do you give your children a good life?
Yeah, like can you imagine, like if you're watching this and you work full time, imagine that your wage got literally cut into a quarter of what it is, but you had to pay the same living costs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Like you had to pay for this apartment on that amount of money. Like it doesn't.
It's giving
You're
go
on the
move
street.
back with your parents.
Yeah, literally. Oh my gosh, it's giving like 3 generations in one household.
Yes. No, but that's what it is in the Philippines.
Literally, yeah,
Fully,
I bet.
Yeah, 100%. Like there's literally 3 generations living in a house of 1 bedroom.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, we just make sure baseline, we pay them 3 times more than that, which is 45,000 pesos per month. And then they have an opportunity to increase their income through obviously like their loyalty and their work ethic with us. So it's basically just creating sustainability in a third world country.
And obviously, like, I don't know if like people know this, that we have like people from VPS working at Blanc Studio.
That's why it's all connected.
Oh, are we mentioning that?
Yeah, we'll talk about
okay,
it.
cool.
Because we're talking about my journey to the Philippines and how I wanted to help through Blanc Studio.
Yes, yeah.
But instead, I just created another business.
Yeah. And then, so you employed 2, so far we have 2.
Yeah.
And watching like, their work ethic, they both have fantastic work ethic, but the fulfillment that they get from what they do and the opportunity to have a creative career is amazing.
Yeah, because that's so rare to be able to actually, in the Philippines, work equals survival. Work doesn't equal passion. Work doesn't equal doing something that you love and you enjoy. Work literally equals survival mode. So I think that's been huge for them. Like the whole aspect of like loving what you do. Has been a huge difference to them.
Their perspective is so different.
I know, because you would remember when they first started with us, they took it very seriously. Not that they don't take it seriously now, but I think they were so used to having employers in the Philippines that would just treat them just like they would just squeeze every single minute, every single second out of them for productivity. You know what I mean? But it's so different if you're a creative. Like some days you're not creative, and some nights from like 9 p.m. to 3 a.m.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
You're the most.
Not me, but other people.
Aiden can relate. So I think that's been one of the biggest things that we've made a difference in them. And I hate to talk about like I've made such a difference. But I think sometimes I just have to own it because I have made a difference. And you know, I spoke about philanthropy and how I wanted to somehow, during the Jane Collective year, I made it a promise to myself and to the Philippines that somehow within the next 10 years, eventually I was going to give back to the Philippines.
Yeah.
But I made it happen in 6 months.
Oh my gosh, that like gives me flashbacks because I remember you saying you wanted to make a difference in the Philippines, and the way you were speaking was like it was a 10-year plan.
It was like
cool,
oh,
I'll make my business successful.
Yeah, when my business is profiting, when I'm not stressed anymore. But then things just
you did it so quick.
I think the sense of purpose was so strong. And this is what I mean by like, I know that I'm supposed to be exactly where I'm meant to be when God, the universe, whatever you believe in, I believe in God, God just gives you all the resources that you need to be able to do that one thing. Because at this time, Diana and also Ryan, who's my financial advisor now, so they knew each other before I came on board. So Ryan was Diana's financial advisor before I came in the picture, and they had wanted to start a virtual assistant, you know, company as well. But they were just talking about it kind of thing. And Diana has a very similar kind of story in that sense of like coming from the Philippines, which we'll talk about in my episode with her. But when I came back from the Philippines, I started talking to Diana about it, and we started talking to Ryan, and we were like, this all makes sense, you know, because Ryan knows a lot about finances and financials. He's a financial advisor, obviously.
You'd hope so.
Me, I have the strength in marketing.
Yeah.
And Diana is fully operational. So we were like the perfect trifecta.
Yeah.
And so boom, VPS happened. Currently we are using, within all our businesses, we are using that resource. It's been really helpful, and we're cultivating that community back in the Philippines and just trying to make a difference in our own way. And now we have just slowly started expanding VPS.
That's so exciting.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's really cool. Okay, so we've sort of like, that's like is that like year 2.5, or is that year 3?
That was like end of, that was during the Blanc Studio year. So after Jane Collective.
It was, yeah.
So after the rebrand.
Yeah, okay. I'm wrapping my head around. So you rebranded, and then what next?
We
what did last year
rebranded,
hold?
and then that brings us to this past year, which, woof.
I mean, the past 3 months have like absolutely flown.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
I know, yes. I know, we're into the 3rd month of the year. It's crazy.
That's wild.
I feel like last year's a blur, and this year's been so intense that it's like I've forgotten what happened last year.
I think a lot of the there's the Hosper year, there's the Jane Collective year, and then there's the first Blanc Studio year. The official first year of Blanc Studio, where I had turned Jane Collective Pty Ltd into Blanc Studio Pty Ltd, and full new look, full new rebrand. A new sense of purpose, and just a stronger sense of purpose.
And that is when you made those hires as well.
Yes.
Carla and Maida.
Yeah. So at the beginning of Blanc Studio, we hired both Carla and Maida.
Oh, when's Maida's first 1 year?
Probably like next month.
Oh,
yeah.
Cute.
Isn't that so cute?
Yeah.
And so shall we dive into Blanc Studio year?
Yeah, absolutely.
You are a huge part of Blanc Studio year, so absolutely. Are you even kidding me? Like, you've been a huge part in all of these years.
Yeah.
And I say this every time, and I'm not gonna get emotional like I have every single time, but honestly, like, you have supported me through thick and thin, like in all phases of my life.
Yeah.
In my baby years, where I was a cute little hospo girl who had a big dream but didn't know how to get there.
Yeah.
Little by little.
I'm going to share this quote that I sent you a couple of weeks ago, because I feel like when I share this quote, people will come to mind. People are in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
You're a lifetime girl.
Yeah, and I sent that to Jane, and I said, you're a lifetime friend. But it's obviously a reason as well.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, that's a really, it's a really nice way to see every single relationship that you have as positive.
Yeah.
Whether or not they're toxic or whether or not they actually, cause havoc.
That's a beautiful perspective.
Yeah, it's like every single person has a reason. They're there for a season of your life to enrich it or to teach you lessons. And I think you had some lessons and some seasonal friends last year.
Seen me go through all the lessons in the seasons, right?
Yeah, all the different like iterations and I do find it hard to like remember last year because I had a baby, so it's like,
oh my God,
like,
that was
true. A huge part of like my year.
So there were a few months where I was doing the copywriting.
Yeah, you were. Yeah,
and
I
then,
think 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
And then
this woman, she's like, I don't want to work.
Oh my God.
After 3 months.
I was so bored. Sitting at home and I was like,
are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Every meeting, I'm like, are you sure you're going to go back to work?
I was like, I'm feeding 2.5 hours a day. Like, what am I going to do? So let's recap.
First official year.
Yeah, the first official year.
We rebranded.
Yeah.
And then during that rebrand, we hired Carla and Maida, and
who are still with us today.
Amazing. And we had started working with a new team of like contractors. I was really excited. Like the team was really like being cultivated within Blanc Studio. And I feel like the last year has been really challenging, but also in a good way though. Like taking on all of the chaos, all of the mistakes, all of the lessons that I've learned in the first 2 years and finally being like, I know what I need to do to make this business better. So would you agree, even this year, we're still doing it highly, has been just creating processes and systems.
For sure. It's been like, the way I think about it is if we were to suddenly hire like 10 people and we had a team of 10, like what would the systems, what would the processes, what would everything need to look like for it to function efficiently with a large team? And that's every time like I have like a meeting with one of the girls, I'm like thinking about that as well.
Yeah.
Like how would this work and how will this work when we grow?
Yeah. So that, like to summarize, like there hasn't really been too many things that has happened. So many things, of course. We traveled a lot again.
You did,
with DK, which she'll be on next. We traveled a lot for DK, did a lot of exciting campaigns, worked with a lot of different businesses, continued to work with, the existing clients. We onboarded a couple of new clients last year and just building on what we know and building on our knowledge as well within like the social media world. And I think one of the biggest things that has happened in the last year of Blanc Studio was actually like having you work more in-house, not just do the copywriting. So like onboarding you as the operational manager has, oh my God, I can't even tell you how grateful I am. Even Diana and Corinne would tell you how much more like relaxed I have been.
That's so nice.
Because I just feel like this is delegate, y'all. Delegate. No, but like I want Blanc Studio to be, obviously the service is like top priority, right? And I just felt like I couldn't be 100% all the time with my clients, just even little things like check-ins, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't even have time to do that back then because I was just in so like just survival.
Which like to put it into perspective, it's like sure you can send a message and check in, but it's like that check in what ensues after that is like there's a lot of back and forth and like every single message prompts another message.
Yeah.
Or every single task usually prompts like I'll need to go back to my computer and get some assets, or do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, everything ends up being larger than just sending a message.
And because that's been looked after, the business has become so much more efficient. And we're on top of our in-house processes, so that when the last minute things come up, we have the capacity for it.
Yeah.
So I've just been so grateful and like so full because of that. And also that has honestly improved my mental health so much. And since the beginning of the year and making that decision, and obviously still working towards refining our systems and our team.
Which is what the first 3 months of this year is.
That
what
was
we set
our goal.
aside. Yeah, it was just 3 months to really get the team in a good flow together and working really well together.
We're in the middle of the 3rd month, and I feel like we've achieved that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well done to us.
Thank you.
So,
Do
you have anything more to say about that? Because I would like to ask you a question after that.
No, you ask.
What's next? Like what's
What's next is domination
Love it.
station. No, I'm kidding.
Dominate
What's next is obviously continue to grow the digital side of Blanc Studio, continue to generate revenue through all the services that we currently already do, which, by the way, if you're still confused, a lot of people are still confused about what we do.
Really?
Like friends and family.
Oh, okay.
We are a brand awareness marketing agency. So what branding, under the whole branding umbrella, we do actual branding, like your brand kits, brand guidelines, logos, all that stuff. We also do social media management. So if business owners can't be bothered or don't have the skills and the time to run their social media, we're your girls.
And time is a big one.
Time.
Yeah.
We all know you're too busy and you procrastinate, and doing one post takes you an hour. We all know.
Are you looking at
We've been there. So we can alleviate you of that stress and that time through social media management.
And be consistent, as we mentioned at the beginning. The
Be
consistency is very
consistent, and
important.
also all of that has a strategy, and everything has to be aligned to your actual business and your brand strategy.
Yeah.
And we also do photography, videography, content creation, the creatives that obviously you need for your marketing. So we're trying to build that, all the digital side of Blanc Studio this year, and continue to attract more online clients. But man, the next big thing, again, I'm gonna say this with confidence because I have no choice, and I'm actually going to do what I'm gonna say. So I'm not shy. Evil eye, whatever. You can evil eye me as much as you want, but I'll see you at the top. Yeah. The space. So Blanc Studio. It's gonna be Blanc Studio headquarters. The big goal is to have a space where we can use it for in-house content. We can use the space for our clients. So as you can picture, it would be a beautiful content house where we'd have beautiful furniture, you know, the backdrop, cyclorama, equipment, all of that.
House of Grums vibes, but
House of
Blanc
Grums
Studio.
House of Blanc, it's called. It's already
You've
a
taken
reality.
the,
I've taken the Instagram handles.
Yeah, so no one can steal it.
House of Blanc. Oh my god, I
Yeah.
completely forgot I called it that.
Oh, really?
Yes,
I
I need
love
to,
it.
Diana, we need to trademark that.
Yeah.
So House of
Buy
Blanc.
the domain. Have
Yes.
you bought the domain?
No, but I will.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
should do that. Go,
House
Daddy.
of Blanc. You're distracting me.
Sorry.
House of Blanc is the next goal within the next year or 2 years, because, you know,
That'll fly.
as much as I love to film content on my couch, I'd prefer not to mix my personal and my
This is
work
a sacred space.
Yeah.
You've
you know,
invited
I
us
have
into your sacred space.
had mental breakdowns on
Yeah.
this couch. This
Yeah.
was the couch I had a mental breakdown.
Wow, it's like from a mental breakdown to podcast recording.
Mind blown. I've achieved so much in this apartment.
Yeah.
Forever grateful, but it's time for the next step.
Yeah,
so
I think so.
that is the next main thing for us. Hope you enjoyed listening to my journey. It's been so incredible to, you know, do this alongside you, Mon. Thank you for
too.
being here.
Thanks for having me
Of course.
on this little ride. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe,
Yes.
follow if you're watching on Spotify. Is
Yes.
that-
Follow us on Instagram.
Yeah.
Follow our YouTube channel. We suck at
All
this.
of the above. I don't even, what do people do? What buttons
Yeah.
do they press? All the buttons. Press all the buttons.
You'll see the subscribe button. No, you won't.
Thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you in the next one.
See you in the next episode. We have a very special guest coming in. It will be Diana from DK Accessories, and boy, she has an incredible story to tell. So make sure that you look out for that episode after you watch and share this episode.